Today, we are going to discuss a section of my new book called Faith Reclaimed: Finding Peace and Hope in God's Promises. Welcome to At Faith and Peace Journey. My name is Kaye Jeter. And have you been feeling lost? Well, Ruth's story can inspire your faith. Discover how Ruth's journey of faith can inspire and guide you through challenging times. Many of you may know the story of Ruth and her willingness to help her mother in law after both of their husbands died. And Ruth was living in the home in her birth town, and there came a famine. And because of the famine, Naomi, in her wisdom, decided that she should go back to her original home in Bethlehem. And so she encouraged Ruth not to follow her, that she was old and it just was not the right thing to do. And Ruth, through her faith, had seen the power of God in the life of Naomi and of her husband and her husband's um, siblings. And so she decided that wherever Naomi went, she would stay by her side. We know that that was part of a greater plan that God had for Ruth. The story of Ruth deals with issues that we're constantly dealing with in our lives, facing the loss of someone, facing whether or not we can really choose faith and move forward when we can't seem to see anything that will change, when we're dealing with just circumstances that are so hard and unbearable. But looking at Ruth, and she began to understand that God was leading her life and she was following the plans of the God that she had seen Naomi serve. So her faith brought her into God's greater plan. And so, how can we apply Ruth's faith to our life? Well, first of all, when and where do you need the Ruth-like faith today when there's been some tragedy or something that just seems like you don't know how you're going to make it to the next day? That was exactly the position that Ruth was in, and the fact that Ruth had her faith to depend on. And then she had to make a choice. The choice was to stay in her old way and with her old way of living, or being willing to help her mother-in-law and move in the direction that she, in her faith, felt that was her place. So, like Ruth, when we have challenges, we need to face those challenges with our faith. And then trusting God. Ruth trusted a God that she learned of through watching her mother-in-law and the family. Know that your faith is the path to understanding God's bigger plan. God always has a bigger plan. So believe that your faith can lead you to God's greater plan. So, what's the inspiration and why is a story about a woman who left her own family and came to the place where her mother in law was from? And by so doing and supporting her mother in law, she was noticed in the fields by a very important man of that place. And he decided that this was the woman he wanted to marry. And so these two poor women were now put into a position where they were being moved up because they had made the decision, Ruth, the decision to follow her mother in law, and her mother, the decision to believe in her faith and go home. You can learn more about the story of Ruth and other faith warriors in my new book called Faith Reclaimed. And then let Ruth's story inspire your faith journey, your faith journey. Things are not always going to be easy, and a lot of them we don't understand. But God has a plan for your life and for my life, just like He had a plan for Ruth. And as a result of Ruth and her faithfulness to God, she was put into the lineage of Jesus Christ. She was made one of those that was a part of his human family here on earth. And then one thing about it, we need to share our story with others. Sometimes we get ashamed and we don't want people to know that we suffered or that we're having problems. But when we have them and we use our knowledge and knowing about the Word of God and believing the Word of God and meditating on the Word of God, and then God reveals to us what our next steps are, and we follow them. These are stories that can be used to inspire others. So I like to use my book for you to find other stories of warriors, faith warriors, people that were determined by their faith and belief in God, but we also have a side in the book that talks about those that did not, and we call some of those wicked people. Whatever you want to know about in terms of your faith and peace journey, I have tried to deal with it in the new book. Please think about getting a copy. It is available on Amazon. And this is Kaye Jeter. I am the author of Faith Reclaimed, Finding Peace and Hope in God's Promises. And I want to invite you to stay tuned and hear more from the book and more to help you with your faith and peace journey at Faith and Peace Journey.